If tonight's episode of Raw proved anything, it was the following. Nothing gets wrestling fans more jacked up than 50-year-old men. But we'll get into that. Before we do, be sure to check out my Pro Wrestling Tees store at prowrestlingtees.com/FTitM. And without further ado, my name is Eric. Welcome to Raw Reactions, first thing in the morning.
Where did you think you could go? 'Cause everyone already knows it's 20 to 1. Yes, so you better run. You got the world on its knees. You take it.
The show kicks off this week in the best possible way that it can with Jericho. Now they make their way to the ring. Owens grabs a mic and confirms what I've been yelling about for months here on the show, that the conspiracy is alive and well. It started with Shane McMahon, and now Mick Foley has taken over the reins. So yeah, a little vindication. Yes, I'm always right. Don't ever doubt me. Now Jericho goes on to say that Mick Foley's inability to appreciate the friendship between Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho qualifies him as a stupid idiot, which I completely agree with. KO says that Mick Foley's plan to shorten his career by putting him in Hell in the Cell isn't going to work. It's going to backfire, in fact, because the only person who has to worry about a shortened career is Seth Rollins. Jericho then goes on to blame the referee last week for his loss against Rollins and then proceeds to put that referee on the list. And finally, Kevin Owens goes on to say that at Hell in the Cell, he will retire Seth Rollins, which prompts him to come out. He calls Jericho Sparkle Crotch because I guess when you turn face, you have to be some sort of immature man baby or something. You remember back in the day, guys like Stone Cold, Triple H, The Rock, Shawn Michaels, when they were baby faces, those were guys you actually wanted to be like. Does anybody? All right. Rollins then goes on to challenge Chris Jericho to a match right then and there. Up next, so our first match for Monday Night Raw was a rematch from last week's main event, Chris Jericho versus Seth Rollins. Now, Jericho and Rollins had a pretty good match here to kick off the show. I mean, it was pretty similar to the one they had last week, but hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, Rollins looked like he had everything under control in this match until Kevin Owens' music hits. He made his way ringside. Jericho took advantage of the distraction to lock in the walls of Jericho on Rollins, who was crawling towards the bottom rope. Just when it looked like he was going to make it, Owens pulled the rope back. The ref caught him, however. There was a little bit of a discussion between Kevin Owens and the referee, and while this was going on, Seth Rollins managed to counter the codebreaker into a pedigree to pick up the win for the second week in a row on Chris Jericho. That rhymed, unintentional. Up next, we had an interview between Lita and Charlotte. Now, they did another one with Sasha Banks later on in the evening, but basically, whatever Charlotte said, Sasha said the opposite. Charlotte said she was going to win Hell in the Cell. Sasha said she was going to win Hell in the Cell, and that's basically what it all boiled down to. Up next, we got the Golden Truth and Mark Henry versus the Shining Stars and Titus O'Neil. Now, personally, I don't have the level of self-loathing needed to force myself to watch this match, so I didn't. I did, however, have the audio on in the background, and let me just give you a little snippet of the commentary. Ow! Followed by a really long pause. Double ow! Inspired fucking commentary, Saxton, you useless fucking waste of skin! Oh, the Golden Truth and Mark Henry won. Woo! We go backstage now, and we have Jericho arguing, which was like the most heartbreaking thing I've ever seen. Like, I literally watched my parents' marriage disintegrate in front of my very eyes, and this was harder to watch than that was. Stephanie McMahon shows up and somehow makes things better between Jericho, which, okay, good move, Stephanie. And then she casually just kind of throws out there that Raw accepts SmackDown's challenge for Survivor Series. You know, just like that, in a throwaway backstage segment, because nobody cares about Survivor Series. Up next, we got Big E versus Sheamus. All right, a couple of big boys slamming into each other. Who doesn't love that? Wait, no, that's not what I meant. Now, Cesaro obviously doesn't know what gimmick infringement is because he came out with his cell phone a la Tyler Breeze, filming himself for Facebook or something. I don't know. He was doing it throughout the entire match. It even led to a distraction where Sheamus was getting really annoyed with Cesaro's filming and all of his nonsense. He got distracted. Big E hit a splash in the corner and then rolled him up for the 1-2-3 and the win. They also plugged Facebook Live about 50 times in a fucking 10-minute match. We get it. Up next, we got Neville versus Bo Dallas, who now dresses in a singlet, which is all black, so we obviously know that the heel turn is confirmed. He's a bad guy because bad guys always wear nothing but black. This was an okay match, I guess. I mean, both guys have been so misused since being called up from NXT that honestly, it's hard to even care. In the end, it was Bo Dallas picking up the win, and then Curtis Axel started celebrating with Bo, but Bo was having none of it and beat the shit out of Curtis Axel. So, I mean, that's something. Up next, we got Bayley versus Dana Brooke, who came out with somewhat of a mean streak, completely controlling the match. Some might say even dominating it, which if I was Bayley, I'd be alright with being dominated by Dana Brooke. You know, what do you want me to say? It was a match that Dana Brooke was in, so it was... I mean, she completely fucked up the finish. She was clearly supposed to have her 2 feet on the ropes, which honestly they were nowhere near. So she basically just beat Bayley clean. Just like that. Okay. Up next, we got Paul Heyman via satellite, and he has a message for Goldberg. He wants Goldberg to know that Lesnar is pissed. He's pissed about the fact that Goldberg is even considering his challenge. He's pissed off at the fact that 12 years ago, he was beaten by Goldberg. I mean, Jesus Christ, 12 years. Get over it, Brock! Basically, if Goldberg accepts Lesnar's challenge, Lesnar's pretty much gonna murder him. That, you know, I'm paraphrasing here, but that's what it boiled down to. And speaking of murder, it's time for a Braun Strowman match. This time, guys, Strowman is gonna face off against 2 MMA douches and a homeless man. I mean, not only did he murder 3 grown men, but he also launched one of those men into space. It was amazing. He then pinned the 2 MMA douches to pick up the win because I'm pretty sure he ate the homeless man mid-match. Strowman then threatens Mick Foley that he is not getting the competition that he wants and that he's going to make his way to the back and get it himself, but he doesn't have time to because Sami Zayn's music hits. He makes his way to the ring, faces off with Strowman, who immediately shoves Zayn the fuck out of the ring. So... yeah. Up next, we had a very uncomfortable segment with Rusev, who quite frankly went on a very racist rant against Samoans, and then decided to introduce us to some of his family. Because, you know, racism, introducing your family, PB&J, guys, 2 great tastes that go great together. Now, this segment was entirely too long and not that entertaining. The only funny parts were Rusev screaming out, "Don't you dare boo my mother," and then him introducing us to Mama Rusev, who quite frankly couldn't hold a candle to Mama Broski. And then, I don't know, Roman Reigns came out and said some shit about how he's gonna win at Hell in a Cell. Then Lana slapped Roman Reigns in the face, and then Rusev super kicked him in the face. His face took a beating. And then he started throwing him around the ring, throwing him into the ring steps, tossed the steps inside the ring, and then set Roman Reigns up for the accolade on the stairs because apparently that somehow makes it worse. Up next, we got Big Cass versus Carl Anderson. Don't care at all. Up next, we got a 6-man tag team match featuring the Cruiserweights. We got on one side, the Brian Kendrick, Tony Nese, and Drew Gulak versus Rich Swann, Cedric Alexander, and TJ Perkins. I thought this was a fun 6-man tag team match. Everybody kind of got their moment to shine. Alexander and Swann looked awesome. Yet again, my personal favorites in the entire division are Swann and Alexander for their flippity-dippity style. Who doesn't like watching a grown man flip through the air? Come on! Eventually, Kendrick locked in the captain's hook on Rich Swann to pick up the win for his team. And now the moment that everybody tuned in for this evening, the return of Bill Goldberg. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, nothing gets wrestling fans more jacked up than 50-year-old men, and this crowd proved my theory. They were dead the entire night. You could have heard a pin drop in that arena. When Goldberg's music hit, they woke the fuck up. Long story short, because there was a lot of chanting and a lot of, stuff where he said he went around the world to, inspire kids or some bullshit like that. He finally got down to the business at hand. Was he or was he not going to accept Brock Lesnar's challenge? Now, he made it look like he wasn't going to, but of course, we all knew that he was going to, and he officially says that Brock Lesnar is next. Before we go off the air, we get a confirmation from Michael Cole that Brock Lesnar will be on Monday Night Raw next week to respond to Goldberg. So there you have it, guys, my Raw reactions for the week. If you want me to sum up how I felt about the show, here it is. The beginning was pretty good with Kevin Owens, Jericho, and Rollins. Goldberg at the end was cool to see because he genuinely seemed happy to be back. He looked like he was having a really good time, and I think the fact that his wife and his son being in the crowd, being the first time for them seeing him perform, must have been a pretty cool feeling. So that was kind of like the feel-good moment, but everything in between was completely forgettable, and it's what Raw's main problem is. Everything is forgettable. There's nothing that really matters in the mid-card, and it's a damn shame because that mid-card is stacked with talent. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you want to join the Broski Club, hit that subscribe button. Go follow me on Twitter at MTLBroski, and check out my Pro Wrestling Tees store over at prowrestlingtees.com/FTitM. Check out my broskis over at kayfabetoday.com for all kinds of great wrestling related content, and our podcast, which I'm on, and we're really just trying not to talk about wrestling anymore on the podcast, so check it out. It's a good time. Plus, Elliot is always going out and getting drunk and making new friends at wrestling shows, and that alone is worth the price of admission, which is free, so just listen to the damn thing! Until next Tuesday morning, guys, these have been my Raw reactions, first thing in the morning.
Yo, I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really